Thank you, Mr. President. I come to the floor today in support of James O'Brien to be Assistant Secretary of State for European and Eurasia Affairs. As Russia continues its brutal assault on Ukraine, as democratic backsliding continues to threaten Central Europe, as we continue to grapple with energy and food security, we must have a fully staffed and empowered diplomatic corps. Vacancies lead a vacuum, and they send the wrong message. Ukraine is by far one of my highest priorities. It is very clear to me that making sure Russia does not succeed in Ukraine is in the United States' national security interests. Ukraine is not only fighting for itself. If Ukraine loses, Moldova and Georgia are next. Ukraine is on the front line of our fight to defend democracy and our shared values. Iran is watching. North Korea is watching. China is watching. When they see the resolve of the United States and our coalition of partners, it stops them from thinking about taking military action elsewhere. That's why we need to continue to show leadership on supporting Ukraine against Russia's aggression. As the chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, I will do everything I can to show the international community that we stand with Ukraine today and tomorrow. That means ensuring Ukraine gets more air defense and long-range missiles. That means working with our European partners who continue to house and support Ukrainian refugees, supporting humanitarian assistance for those suffering, including children who have been abducted into Russia and families who have been torn apart. That means finding a path for the administration's supplemental request. And yes, that means getting our nominees to their posts in the European Affairs Bureau. Without our nominees confirmed and in their positions, who will advocate on behalf of American values in Ukraine and beyond? Who will advance America's national security interests? Who will work to lead our efforts from Washington to shore up the transatlantic alliance in pursuit of stability and peace? President Putin is helping far-right political parties, individuals, and groups across Europe and beyond who support his agenda. He is attacking the human rights of Ukrainian citizens. He's laying waste to Ukrainian cities. I believe he is trying to commit genocide in Ukraine. And I support an international tribunal into Russian war crimes like the one we saw in Nuremberg after World War II. Given these challenges, we need someone leading the diplomatic effort on behalf of the American people to confront Russia's aggression. That is why we must confirm James O'Brien today. Ambassador O'Brien had an impressive hearing at the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He presented a compelling vision for how he would lead the Bureau of European and Eurasia Affairs. He laid out the importance of America's leadership on integrating Ukraine as well as the South Caucasus and Western Balkans into the transatlantic economic and political structures. He was reported favorably by the Foreign Relations Committee by a bipartisan voice vote. Ambassador O'Brien brings a wealth of experience to this position, having most recently worked as the head of the Office of Sanctions Coordinator, targeting, among others, the Russian oligarchs that thrive on corruption. Russian oligarchs whose corrupt networks are continuing to fuel the war in Ukraine, which in turn impacts global energy and food prices for just about every single person in the world. Beyond his most recent post, Ambassador O'Brien's professional resume reads like building blocks for this position. Having served as the principal deputy director of policy planning and the presidential envoy for the Balkans, he will be up to speed if a conflict again erupts in Kosovo. He won't be afraid to call out bad actors in Bosnia and work with those advocating for peace, transparency, and prosperity. He helped establish the Office for Hostage Affairs and worked for the safe return of 100 American citizens. He dealt with scientific and environmental agreements and Russia and Ukraine's post-Soviet transitions. He has been part of an initiative to investigate and prosecute persons responsible for war crimes. And he has received numerous awards of distinction from the State Department. This is a seasoned professional who is ready to take on this high-profile challenge. Once he is confirmed, he'll be able to hit the ground running. That sends a signal that the United States cares about what happens in Europe. And right now, we need to show our resolve. Ukrainians are doing their part. Even as they fight a war to defend their country, they are making good progress on anti-corruption. We need to be there for them and make clear that our support is long-term and bipartisan. We need to stand with Ukraine to make sure it gets everything it needs to defend itself and succeed in this Russian war. Ukrainian success on the battlefield is what will bring Russia to the negotiating table, nothing else. That is why it's time for the United States and the international community to step up. We cannot take a pass on good versus evil. So, Mr. President, I urge my colleagues to join me in voting yes on the cloture for this nominee, yes to advancing our diplomatic efforts to confront Putin's war in Ukraine, yes to promoting American values, yes to advancing America's national security interests. With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.